Cummings here, continuing our discussion on Week 1 FanDuel values. Now, we often consider wide receiver to be the third most important position, but you have to play 3 of them each week on FanDuel, so I think that adds a little importance.
Yeah, I don't think it's the third most important position. I think it's 1A, 1B, and 1C. These guys are all just as important. 1D when you factor in tight ends.
I think when you play 3 wide receivers, it makes it easier because you know you're going to find a couple of cheap guys to play at least one stud. So let's start with the most high-priced guys. Julio Jones, $9,000, maybe my favorite wide receiver.
Well worth it.
We've talked about matchups before on this show. With wide receivers, the matchup can be as simple as one corner. Are there any of these guys facing a cornerback that might make you shy away from him?
I'm going to go ahead and say no. Look at the matchups in this game. All 5 of these wide receivers are studs. Look at the matchups for them. There isn't a great cornerback, rather, on any of these teams.
You're discounting Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie?
Against Dez Bryant, yes, I am.
Okay, so the other side of that equation is you got to have a quarterback that'll get you the ball. Which of those quarterbacks are you most confident in? It's probably not Matthew Stafford. It's probably not Eli Manning. Is it Romo? Is it Peyton Manning? Is it Matt Ryan in Week 1?
I mean, clearly, if you go by pedigree, it's Peyton Manning. But I think for this coming Week 1, for this week in the matchup, I'll take Matt Ryan.
Okay.
I really think the outlook for him is going to be great.
Yeah, I feel like Tony Romo is going to be in a shootout against the Giants. A lot of points, a lot of high scoring in that one. Romo Dez is going to be where I start all of my Week 1 matchups.
Okay, when we're talking about cash games, we're talking about we want the safest stud receiver. Which of those guys do you have no question? I mean, we're not really worried about any of them. Which one's the most safe?
It could be Dez. I just really think Julio is going to be a monster.
Yeah.
I really do, especially with Roddy White potentially out of that game because of his elbow situation. That you say the Cowboys game is going to be a shootout. I think Falcons-Eagles is going to be the highest scoring game of the week.
Right, so I agree, but I like Dez at a little bit less than Julio Jones.
Okay.
Wouldn't surprise me if Julio ended up with 150-1 or 102, something like that. But I think Dez is very safe to get 110, 120, and at least 1 touchdown.
Let's flip the script because you can't play 3 of those guys. You've got to have a couple of cheap guys at wide receiver. When we looked at the cheap running backs yesterday, we didn't really like what we saw. Not the case here with the wide receivers. So many good, young, cheap receivers. One thing about this I noticed is some of these guys are wide receiver 2s on good offenses. Some of them are maybe wide receiver 1s on bad offenses. Do you have a preference?
No, I think you want to get the guys with the best quarterback, but also you're looking at matchup. Like, I'm actually going to use 2 of these guys in Devontae Adams and Nelson Aguilar in my Week 1 matchup because, like I said, I like the opportunity to get something of that Atlanta-Philadelphia game. Julio Jones is going to be in my Week 1 lineup as well. But getting 2 guys on this list, if you really believe in them, that's going to only enhance your roster. And so I believe in 2 of these guys. I think there's a lot of upside for both.
I wish John Brown was just a little bit cheaper. $6,000 for him when I see those other wide receivers at $5,500 makes me want to go in the other direction. But I do think John Brown offers that big-time upside. And in a tournament, you've got to put some of those players in your lineup. John Brown might just as easily get 2 catches for 25 yards as he could 4 catches, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's all over the map. And that's why I want to put somebody like him in my lineup. And I don't know if every name on that list was like that.
Okay, Allen Robinson clearly has the worst quarterback of that whole group. But I think he's going to get a ton of targets. Does Blake Bortles scare you away from Robinson?
A little bit just for this week,
Right.
Week 1 game against the Panthers. That defense is good. They're going to come after him. And I think it's just one of those things where you draft Robinson to kind of see what you have and know what you have in a seasonal league. In this type of format, you don't have to gamble on it.
Right.
So the other guys that are up there, there's just as much upside, if not more. And I think you just kind of let Robinson, throughout the course of the season, come to you in a FanDuel lineup as opposed to, taking a chance on him without knowing what you're going to get.
Well, we have to start 3 receivers. We've got 3 guys up here. And I think with our top 3 receivers, you could actually fit them all into a lineup. I'm going to go ahead and take the expensive one so you guys have to find the cheap guys. Julio Jones, Week 1 against Philadelphia. Fantastic matchup, fantastic quarterback. $9,000 is a lot, but I don't think it's too much at all. He had at least 15 fantasy points in all but one of his last 5 games last year. Topped 30 in 2 of his last 5.
He's a monster. I mean, he's playing for a contract, in great shape, in a Kyle Shanahan offense that features his number 1 receiver. And, oh, by the way, Roddy White may not play. So Matt Ryan, that's where he's going. And I do think it's going to be a ton of points. Philadelphia's going to score on this Atlanta defense, and I think Atlanta will follow suit.
It's a Monday night game, right?
Yep.
Superstars come out under those bright lights.
Absolutely. Now, Dave, Jamie mentioned he was going to start Nelson Aguilar. You've got the other Eagles receiver as your top receiver.
Yeah, Jordan Matthews. I think that's a much safer direction to go in, and I think that's a lot cheaper than what you're or it's a little bit more expensive than Aguilar, but way cheaper than Julio Jones, and someone who can certainly lead the Eagles in targets, have a good chance to score against one of those linebackers or safeties for Atlanta, and someone who I think can deliver a lot of catches on top of that. All the things that you look for from a starting FanDuel wide receiver.
We always talk about, no matter what the position is, it's usually injuries that create value. Well, there's maybe a shortage of value on FanDuel in week 1 because they haven't played enough games for there to be the major injuries. Your top receiver, though, his value was created because of an injury.
I don't know if he's my top receiver, but he's definitely somebody that's going
Right.
to be in my lineup, and that's Devontae Adams because of Jordy Nelson being out. And this is the benefit of the prices being released early, is that you can get somebody like Devontae Adams, who clearly, if we were talking about this now, his value would be a lot higher. So I like getting Adams on my roster. I like getting Aguilar on my roster, and this allows me to spend on Julio and then still spend on 2 good running backs because I'm going to go with Jeremy Hill and probably either Eddie Lacy or Adrian Peterson.
No
so
chance.
I like having that roster
Sorry.
complete.
I've done that like 3 times. No worries. I'm excited. What can I say? There's no way that Devontae Adams is going to be at 5,500 in week 2.
Right.
Right.
So use him while you can
That's
in
right.
week 1.
Oh, he's going to have like an 80% ownership percentage,
Yeah.
at least. That will do it for our week 1 wide receiver value review on FanDuel. Keep it tuned to CBS Sports for more daily fantasy coverage.